So again, appreciate folks joining us. This week we're going to have Michelle as our guest speaker, and she was very lucky to go to the Disney 100 exhibit and is going to share that with us. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Michelle, and I'm going to be sitting back and resting and enjoying the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, so I went in Philly when they did the world premiere. It has since moved on to Chicago and it will open in Kansas City next week. So if you're in the Kansas City area, you might be able to catch it. But for right now, then I'll just start before I keep on going and talking. So there we go. Hopefully you see that first shot.
Yep.
Okay. This is the Franklin Institute in Philadelphia. So you can see the world premiere. They did it very big. It was very impressive inside that thing. So I went through twice. I did go to the D23 event, which also combined a media preview. And I was there for the morning that it opened. So I enjoyed it immensely. It did take me about 2.5 hours each time to go through everything. But starting right off, once you get in, you go into an entrance gallery. And in that entrance gallery, you do happen to go and see Walt. So before I talk, I want you to watch this video and see what you think.
There's a lot of satisfaction in developing ideas into reality. When we consider a new project, we really study it. Not just the surface idea, but everything about it. And when we go into that new project, we believe in it all the way. We have confidence in our ability to do it right, and we work hard to do the best possible job. There's really no secret about our approach. We keep moving forward, opening up new doors, doing new things, because we're curious. And curiosity keeps leading us down new paths. We're always exploring and experimenting.
Everybody ready? Then on the show!
So that is what we lovingly refer to as hologram Walt. From what I understand, Disney hired an actor who watched archival video of Walt to get his mannerisms, and then they threw in some AI, and then they created this video, which I half like and I half don't like. But in any which case, it was certainly quite a way to start this exhibit. And as you walk through, you go ahead and you see all these quotes. These are the two that I caught that I really liked. Here is the world of imagination, hopes, and dreams, and animation can explain whatever the mind of man can conceive. I just thought those were two really nice quotes, but it went all through the wall as you walk through this entrance gallery to walk into the rest of the exhibit. And then you go ahead and you begin the tour. Now there is 10 different sort of galleries, and each gallery has a theme. And this first gallery is where it all began. So it does concentrate on Walt's early years, basically from Walt's birth, condensing his first 18 years on that middle board that you see. And then the second board all the way to the right tells the story of the beginnings of the Walt Disney Company, then known as the Disney Brothers Cartoon Studio in 1923. Now, if you note, each gallery has its own gallery artwork. In this one on the left, it shows the Colony Theater in New York City, where you can see the marquee for Steamboat Willie. which premiered there on November 18th, 1928. This did become Mickey's birthday, if I'm not mistaken. It is currently there, called the Broadway Theater on Broadway and 53rd. The Great Gatsby just opened after the theater being mostly closed for years. And then you can also see Alice's Wonderland as well, the first of the Alex comedies, which started the company. I don't know how much you can read in there, but they really condense his first 18 years of where his family moved, etc. And then as we move forward, I wanted to show you a wide shot of how the gallery moves along. And they made it very fancy with things in the corner, but they made it so you can flow and walk through. I did concentrate on the exhibit pieces. However, there was so much more. There was interactive spaces, areas you can view and read all kinds of information on whatever that gallery subject matter was, as well as videos you can watch. It was a lot to do, and whatever you liked, they had. So onward, we have our first exhibit piece, which is a Laugh-O-Grams megaphone used by Walt Disney, dated for 1923. Now, this board goes over Walt's work in life in 1921 to 1922 in Kansas City, and how Laugh-O-Grams starts as Newman Laugh-O-Grams because the theater was owned by a gentleman called Frank Newman. And then in May of 1922, Walt formally incorporates as Laugh-O-Gram Films. So the fact they have this artifact is just absolutely amazing. So a lot of us did stare at it for quite some time because it was just, for me, amazing to see something that Walt touched in 1923. And then onwards, the first thing that you also see is the Alice Comedies contract, which is the founding document for the company, signed on October 16th, 1923, between him and Margaret Winkler, a New York City businesswoman. So technically, it all started with an Alice comedy, not really a mouse, but, you know, we'll let them have it. This also goes to show that a woman also gave Walt his first big break. You can also see at that point that Walt lived in California at the Kingswell Avenue home of his Uncle Robert, as well as he was Walt's witness on the contract. And I guess you can sort of see the first official signature of Walt Disney. Didn't change that much, but it's still very iconic. And then this board has history from 1923 to 1927. And it does state that he made 56 Alice comedies before he turned his attention to his next character. And his next character was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. To the left is the story sketch page from 1928. And along the top, they have a stencil set and a poster from the old swimming hole. You can check out the bottom where it has a Winkler production by Walt Disney. According to the board, Walt completed 26 Oswald cartoons from 1927 to 1928. He did lose control of Oswald after learning his distributor. It was Margaret Winkler, but now it was her husband, Charles Mintz, who was her witness on that founding contract. She turned over all her business interests to him after their marriage in 1924. The story goes that he lured away Walt's animators with the exception of Ub Iwerks and signed them all to Universal Pictures. If I'm not mistaken, Mintz lost control of Oswald the following year when Universal awarded the Oswald contract to somebody else. And then the Disney company did get Oswald back in 2006, effectively trading sportscaster Al Michaels to NBC Sunday Night Football. And then we had the dreaded telegram in which Walt informs Roy on March 13th, 1928, that he is leaving New York and, quote, "Don't worry, everything will be okay." Note now that they live on Lyric Avenue at this point. And then comes the origins of Mickey and Minnie Mouse. To the left, you see the first earliest known drawing of Mickey and Minnie from 1928 from the collection of the Walt Disney Family Museum. As the story goes, Walt created Mickey, or the idea of Mickey, on the train ride home, and once he got home, solidified his ideas with Ub Iwerks. The quote on the board says, "He popped out of my mind onto the drawing pad on a train ride from Manhattan to Hollywood at a time when the business fortunes of my brother Roy and myself were at the lowest ebb and disaster seemed right around the corner." This is also what Walt says in the movie at the end of One Man's Dream in Hollywood Studios in Florida. So as I'm reading that, I'm listening to Walt in my head. And then the next is the story script page for Steamboat Willie in 1928, the first synchronized cartoon. Now, you can see in the middle, though I didn't post the video here, a video of it was playing. So you can see at scene 22 is right on the mark. They're literally duplicates of each other. We go on to his next thing, which was Silly Symphonies. The top is Flowers and Trees from 1932. They call it Visual Development. And the bottom is Skeleton Dance from 1929. And they caption it as Cleanup Animation. And then this is the ending of the first gallery. This ends with the Walt's Legacy Board and the interactive timeline of the Disney company from the very beginning to the current. Each panel is a different decade, and under each are the dates of the timeline that you can sort of see underneath there. The same movie I was talking about earlier at Hollywood Studios also has what is quoted on the board from Walt, that quality will out. Give the people everything you can give them. I think they're convinced. I think they'll hang on after Disney. This is where you can hear people sniffling in that movie and at the end of One Man's Dream, including myself. In that movie, Walt says it like he's chuckling to himself. So he was right. And that is the first gallery. I did make this a little bit longer because there was just so much stuff in there and I didn't want for you not to see it. The second gallery is a theme of where the stories come from. This is mostly the exhibit from all the movies. So this is where a lot of people also stopped because how rare do you see these things? So the first movie was Snow White exhibit pieces. There are the two artworks, but unfortunately I didn't take photos of the placards next to them, which I usually do. So I don't know off the top of my head who drew them. And then you can see Sleepy with his bunny. And then the prop storybook from 1937. Now, Sleepy was pretty much on the floor, so you can actually take a picture with this little statue because it was literally way down far. And then the second one was Pinocchio. I was surprised to see this because I thought it was so delicate. So it is the original wooden puppet and his outfit from 1940. I also thought it was very nice that they tried to make the exhibit much more personal because you can see the background of the case. So I thought it really drew you into the movie. And then we go on to Sleeping Beauty. To the left, the artwork is from Ivid Earle in 1959, captioned as Visual Development. And then their prop storybook from 1959. Ivan's work is absolutely beautiful. I love those colors. And the next movie they show is Cinderella. So along the top, you will see artwork from Mary Blair from 1950, Visual Development, and Mark Davis, also from 1950, but note on the corner there, it says 4748 prod, which I assume is production, and which is Cinderella in her work dress. And then on the bottom, you can see the glass slipper from 1915, from the movie from 1915. I'm sorry, from 2015, 1915. Good Lord, 2015. I wanted to wear that slipper, but it didn't fit and I didn't want to cut my toes off. And then this gallery, you see the famous Mary Poppins horse. And then to the right is Beauty and the Beast candles in the clock from the live action movie in 2017, which was Lumiere and Codsworth. And then in the middle there, you see Winnie the Pooh, which was from the live action Christopher Robin 2018 movie. as we know, the original Winnie the Pooh is in the New York Public Library. And you can see also, they did also put backgrounds here as well, which I thought was really quite lovely. And then this one, this gallery showcased all the animators' models. You can see Carl from Up, from 2009, there on the top left. Timothy Mouse from Dumbo from 1941. And on the bottom, Judge Doom from Who Framed Roger Rabbit in 1988. Elliot, Pete's Dragon from 1977. And then Donald Duck there didn't have a date, so I assume it's one of the very early ones. And then Frozone from The Incredibles in 2004. So these were, and there were many more, but these were quite wild to look at because you figured somebody spent all this time sculpting this and just amazing creativity. And then we go on to see Cruella's dress, worn by Emma Stone from the 2021 movie. The Olaf toy puppet for Frozen for the Broadway musical created in 2018. And then Ariel's costume worn by Ululi Carvajalo, which I know I'm butchering her name, for the Little Mermaid live TV show that was in 2019. And then the next gallery is the Spirit of Adventure and Disney. So on the left, I assume was the Captain Jack outfit. And unfortunately, I didn't take a picture of that placard, but why wouldn't it be? And then in the middle, you can see the attraction vehicle model of the Jungle Cruise from Disneyland in 1956. It was used by Walt Disney for a TV show called A Trip Through Adventure. A Trip Through Adventureland / Waterbirds. I'm not quite sure what Waterbirds means, but A Trip Through Adventureland is just as good.
Yeah, Waterbirds was a true life adventure. So they did half an hour of the upcoming theme park and then a half hour of free footage to fill out the rest of the show.
Oh, okay, there you go. Well, there's Walt Disney's little prop plaything. And then the next one, along the top there is the concept art for the Jungle Cruise by Mark Davis. I'm assuming that says 1952. I didn't take a very good picture of it, but that seems right. And then the Nautilus, the special effects filming model for 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea in 1954. Now this thing was big. It took up that entire wall. So that filming model was a big deal. And then we move into outer space. Left is the Walt in Space posters. I particularly like the top left, our friend, the Atom. So I just thought that just tickled my fancy. And then the exhibit does flow into the Star Wars franchise and they make it seem like you're going through warp speed, which I thought was a nice touch. And is it really a Star Wars exhibit without a stormtrooper? So there he is, along with BB-8 and an ancient Jedi text. And then the next one is the move into Marvel with the Black Panther. And then the Captain America shield from Captain America, Civil War from 2016. And then unfortunately, I don't know all the Marvel characters, but that's the headgear for all of them. One looks like Thor, one looks like Ant-Man. I guess one is Guardians of the Galaxy. So anyone who knows, feel free to tell me. But there are all those guys. And then we go on to probably everyone's favorite part is the magic of sound and music. Now, the quote from Walt stating he cannot think of the story without the music. The last line on that billboard that you see there is for nearly 100 years, quite simply, Disney music has produced the soundtrack of our lives. And that is probably most definitely true. And then as you walk through, you come into this large room with the screen that is playing the music scenes of the various different movies. And you see the shelf for drawings underneath and music sheets and things like that. One of which is the Whistle While You Work. That is the lead sheet from Snow White from 1937. It is written by Frank Churchill on December 21st, 1934. Also on the top right of the sheet, it's also written. But I thought, wow. Now, granted, there's a lot of things here that are beautiful reproductions, but there's a couple things that are real. And then here you have a different version of the room. As you walk into the room and you stand back a little bit, Maestro Mickey is there. It's set back in the area. Now you can see the headphones there to the left and the right behind Mickey. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was doing the different language versions of Frozen. The exhibits that I picked here, though you can see how many there were, is the story sketch of Sorcerer's Apprentice from 1940. And then the sheet music for Yo-Ho, which is the Pirates of the Caribbean song. And then on the right, the visual development for Encanto in 2021, which is a digital painting by Camille Andre. And that I sort of picked to point out that they started with these beautiful story sketches in 1940, all the way up to now they can do digital paintings in 2021, and God knows what they can do in 2024. So it certainly came a long way. And then we get back to exhibits. Now, the first one on the left is the mouse guitar from the Mickey Mouse Club from 55 and 56. The placards say it was used by Jimmy Dodd. And then we have the chimes for Tinkerbell's Movements in Peter Pan in 1953, used by Jimmy MacDonald. And then the whistle from Steamboat Willie in 1928. And then on the bottom there, I put a photo of how the exhibits are placed. So you can see how you walk by, you can look at it, you can see it in all of its different sides. And then, because it made me happy, I caught that little Tinkerbell sparkle that you see in an arc. She was flying around on the wall. And then you can also see the little video monitors there. They were showing how the effects were done. So you can also stop and look at the videos and wait for the interactive elements on the wall while you look at all these really amazing exhibits. And then you turn a slight corner and you can just see this amazing wall of music. There are headphones that you can see, and then you can listen to any song that you pick on those screens. So you can hang out there and listen to your favorite songs or songs that you haven't heard in a while, or maybe songs you can't find out there. It should be there. Then along the top, they do have an exhibit of theater programs. So it's Aida and Beauty and the Beast from Broadway, and Newsies from Pantages Theater in LA. Then in the middle, because I had to, there's a soundtrack record album of It's a Small World, the Walt Disney Presents at the New York World's Fair from 1964. And below that, it's Walt Disney Takes You to Disneyland, musical tour, The Magic Kingdom. And then on the right, you can see one of the costumes from Lion King on Broadway. And then the next one is what I like to call the Joe Rohde Gallery. This is called The World Around Us. Even though, interesting enough, when I took that photo, I caught, because you pick up the thing and you can hear him. I caught the photo while he was saying the idea that nature is a value that can't be substituted and it can't be altered, which I thought is very much true and something that we always have to worry about. And then on the bottom of him is this beautiful haunting painting of Bambi in 1942 by Tyrus Wong. And then over to the right, you have a rendering of Animal Kingdom's Tree of Life, along with the description of designing Animal Kingdom, the magic of nature. And then as you go through this gallery, there's also a section of Walt in South America. So those I hope I'm saying this right, gaucho pants given to Walt in Argentina in 1941. And then his 60mm camera he used to shoot footage that was featured in Saludos Amigos in 1943. I did go looking for photos of him using the camera. So hopefully those two that you see on the bottom are that camera that he's holding. And then over to the right, you can see they added the Oscar for Bear Country in 1953. And along the top, concept art for the Matterhorn bobsleds by Herb Ryman in 1958. And then we go on to another gallery called Innoventions. So the quote by Marley Sklar on the middle board is Walt Disney had 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future. And then a quote by Walt, I can never stand still. I must explore and experiment. I resent the limits of my own imagination. Many of the things that seem impossible today will become the realities tomorrow. And then this gallery pulls back the curtains for behind the scenes glimpse at just a few of the inventions that Disney has developed. So it starts off with the art of storyboarding. This is the Disney short called In the Bag. And then on the bottom is the concept art for Tomorrowland by Herb Ryman in 1965. Oh, and then we get to the thing that scared me, because look at it. This is the audio animatronic of Abraham Lincoln from Great Moments of Mr. Lincoln at the Illinois Pavilion at the New York World's Fair. Up close, it is very creepy and very cyborgy, but also very fascinating because it looks so amazingly real. And years later, the Terminator came out and it's like you're looking at it. So I did all kinds of photos so you can see it up close and far away and how they put it with the background and everything else. And then as we go forward, you can see the electric hand that was in the Pirates of the Caribbean in Magic Kingdom and at Walt Disney World in 2015. And then the Project Little Man figure, I'm guessing that's Buddy Ebsen, created by Roger Broggie and Wathall Rogers in 1951. And then the animation programming console used from the 70s through the 90s at Walt Disney Imagineering. It looks very complicated to someone who's not an Imagineer. And then what everybody was going crazy over is the Pixar computer from 1988. Look at that thing, it's humongous. And then that ends for that gallery. And the next gallery is Your Disney World. So you can see in the middle there, it was a draft of the entrance plaque. Apparently those scribbles do belong to Walt, dated June 22nd, 1955. So apparently the original quote was, where you leave today and visit the world of fantasy yesterday and tomorrow, became here you leave today and enter the world of yesterday, tomorrow, and fantasy. The bottom of this says it's not ready for opening. And to me, what looks like very angry scribbles from Walt and a question mark. The other item is the employee badge number 1 issued to Walt in 1955. It's most interesting to see memos and him writing over stuff. And I don't know, I just find it interesting. And the next one is a whole bunch of exhibits. So the first one is Engineer Mickey Mouse, used by Walt on opening day for Disneyland on July 17th, 1955. I don't know, I went scouring the internet to go find a photo of him with Engineer Mickey. So I'm assuming that one is an opening day photo, but that is one happy Walt Disney right there. And then the next is Minnie Mouse's 50th anniversary costume from Disneyland in 2005. And then a Small World audio animatronic doll from Magic Kingdom. It's cute while riding the ride. It is a little creepy up close, but nonetheless spectacular. And then the Red Demon from Mr. Todd's Wild Ride in Magic Kingdom. in Walt Disney World from 1971 to 1988. And then on the top there, I just want you to see how the exhibits were placed. So it was very creative the way they did it, lit very nice. All right, and then on the bottom, you can see a video capture of Walt. Again, I interestingly caught the words, "Everything in Epcot will be dedicated to the happiness of people who will live." And I assume the next few words were "and work there." And to the right, you can see that they brought in a ride vehicle for Peter Pan's flight. The next gallery is called The Wonder of Disney. Now, to the left is the McCall's doll pattern for Mickey and Minnie from the 1930s and a home-sewn, not homegrown, though I guess you could do that too, Mickey from the 1930s. It still looks in fantastic shape. So whoever had it really took very good care of it, or put it in a box, and just didn't open it again for decades. And then to the right, unfortunately, is the scary photo of the life-size Mickey Mouses apparently playing in a band. Now these, the top, are the Ingersoll Mickey watch from 1933. In the middle is the early licensed Disney product called Mickey's Children Writing Tablet. It's a sample from 1930. And then to the right is Three Little Pigs toothbrush holder from the 1930s. And then as we walk on, the bottom is a large life-size postcard on the wall from Marceline, Walt's boyhood home. It's the first day of issue for his stamp. That was on September 11th, 1968. And then to the right, you can see the Santa Fe and Disney Railroad card that certifies Mickey as an honorary vice president. And the more exhibits is the raccoon hat from Davy Crockett and the River Pirates on TV from 1955. It does say it was worn by Fess Parker. You have the Winnie the Pooh president hat from Disneyland in 1972. And the magic ring from the Shaggy Dog in 1959, used by Tommy Kirk. We go on to see the prop spell book with that very large eye from Hocus Pocus in 1993, used by Bette Midler. And then it's a Small World child ticket from the New York World's Fair. You can see it's priced at 50 cents. I didn't realize that Small World had a ticket price to enter, but there you go. So the 10th and final gallery is more of a upcoming to what the Disney company has. It says, "We are just getting started." Now you can go to this booth and you can listen and watch Mickey, the Story of a Mouse documentary. I would imagine this was before it was put on Disney Plus, but I couldn't honestly remember one way or another. But if you wanted to listen to it, you were able to stand there, pick up those, there aren't headphones, you just pull them off the wall and put them to your ear. And then the next is a costume of Ms. Marvel. And then the hook from Peter Pan and Wendy in 1923, apparently used by Jude Law. And that would end our galleries. And of course, like anything with Disney, it leads you to a gift shop and you can pretty much buy anything your heart desires. So thank you very much. I appreciate your attention and I hope you enjoyed the show.
Well, that's just great. I'm sure that people have a lot of questions. For me, how much did you spend at the gift shop?
I will plead the fifth. A lot. I mean, I did buy this nice hoodie. I bought a t-shirt. I'm sure I bought pins. I didn't buy the whole thing. They had everything you can possibly think of for sale. I did buy the Disney 100 book. They didn't have, unfortunately, the one thing they didn't have was the program. I think didn't come in time for the opening. So none of us got the programs. The media did, but people walking through the gallery did not. But they had they had everything. You can buy the posters, you can buy other gifts not related to Disney 100, you know, the cups, the pins, the whole 9 yards.
Did they explain how they picked Philadelphia as the first stop for it?
They didn't. I assumed it was just available and they wanted something on the East Coast.
Yeah, because I don't know, again, with Kansas City or, where, the other spots that they're stopping, there's, more of a Walt connection. I was just wondering, if they explain that.
Yeah, they did pick Chicago because that's where he was born, and Kansas City because that's his boyhood home. I'm just thinking East Coast. And
Right.
they had the room, they had the availability, and they didn't want to hear it from people. So you got at least 3 different diverse areas that people can go to.
Well, again, I found it fascinating. I was able to spend a lot of time in the archives, and things like the Snow White and the Cinderella books. Open them up and hold them. I mean, one of the things I had fun was I put on the ring from Shaggy Dog that you showed. I tried it, but the spell doesn't work anymore. So, but great. There's a couple questions for you in the chat there that people have. I can pop them up. Let's see.
No.
Yeah, Carolyn, my husband has produced dozens of soundtracks, and he always says it only comes to life with the music. I was actually thinking in the car the other day, something came up on my iPod for some small piece of Disney background music, and thinking about it, I wonder how many songs and versions of songs and everything that they've written and recorded. It's just truly remarkable.
That library is extensive. So, I mean, you can stand there and pick song after song to listen to if you wish. There's no time limit for this exhibit that I know of. So if you wanted to spend 5 hours in there, spend 5 hours in there.
Yeah, you'd be the person in front of me listening to every song alphabetically as I'm just waiting to hear.
There's different stations.
Oh, okay. And Beth is thanking you for a great job sharing your photos. And Carolyn wants to know about where it's going next.
It's in Kansas City next week. It'll probably be there for several months. After that, I am not sure where it goes, but I thought it was going in. No, there is an international version already out there. I believe in London. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere in the country after Kansas City.
Yeah, I think after London, I heard talk. I think somebody was saying Germany for that version. So,
But
Carol says, great presentation. It looks like you put a lot of work into it. The AI
yes,
Walt is a bit creepy.
it is creepy. Some things are best seen far away.
Well, it's amazing what they can do with AI. I mean, Carol and I are actually not here. We're in Switzerland right now, and this is AI, Bill and Carol.
Well, hologram Walt was an experience to watch.
Sort of sacrilegious in a way, though, isn't it?
I'm sorry?
Sort of sacrilegious in a way.
Well, I mean, didn't they have enough footage just to use Walt?
Yeah.
They have to have an actor to come in, but maybe there was a method to the madness. Or maybe they didn't get permission from the Disney family. I have no idea.
I think they wanted to go with the 3D impact, and it was easier to do it that way.
Yeah, so I mean, that's what they went with, and that's what we got. It was interesting to watch.
Well, I found, I don't know about you, Brock, how'd you enjoy seeing the old AA console again?
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, it was interesting. It was like, yeah, I've seen that many times. Never got to run it. I had nothing about that part of it, but watched the guys using it, and it was so interesting because it was kind of like a stick figure, as far as what you're manipulating, the fingers and wrist or whatever it happened to be. There's a button for a knob for each one of those. Was this something you had to pay to go into, or is this a free exhibit that they're doing?
Oh no, you got to pay up.
Yeah.
It's
How
Disney.
much?
Come
I
on.
mean, it's not super expensive that I remember. Um, 20, $30 maybe.
Okay. And there's no
Um,
plans to bring it to the West Coast?
I don't believe so, but
That's kind
one
of weird.
never knows information that comes out after this because it's been traveling for over a year now. Because
Yeah.
this Philadelphia had opened in February 2023. So then it went to Chicago for a few months, and now it's going to open in Kansas City next week. I would assume up until August or September.
I heard there's a possibility of the Reagan Library, but I haven't seen anything other than, vague rumors.
Yeah, it needs a really big space. It's a very large exhibit. So as I said, there's other elements in there in interactive things you can do and videos you can watch and things you can listen to, things you can play with. I mean, this is only a tiny little fraction that I just sort of boiled down to so you wouldn't be here for 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah, I mean, things like the Nautilus, I think that's about 6, 8 feet long, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
It's quite
that
large.
sucker is big.
Yeah. And it's really neat if you can see it up close, all the little rivet work and everything, because it's all made out of metal. And it's really fascinating. One thing people may not have realized, those little sculpted figures like you had of Elliot and the others, they're made for the animators. So if you look at it from the left side, the right side, up, down, the animators could hold it in the hand and say, okay, if I'm animating Elliot and he's coming down at me, what's he going to look like? So they had quite a collection of those, but they're very rare because a lot of the animators just took them home and gave them to the kids to play with, and they were made out of plaster, and you can imagine they didn't last all that long. So great to see that they've got samples of some of those, surviving.
I was just remembering the Reagan Library had a big exhibit, a Disney exhibit for over a year, which traced the history and all that too. So unless they want to repeat themselves, I don't know if they would have this.
I think it depends how successful and how many tickets they'll sell.
That's true.
Carol
Yeah,
worked
yeah.
on that at the Getty at the Reagan Library. She was one of the tour guides, docents. Don't touch people.
Yeah, I was there at the Reagan Library at some point, viewing that exhibit as well.
Yeah, that Nautilus you were talking about, we had that along with some of the dive suits and things like that in the original queue line going into the Living Seas Pavilion at Epcot Center before they made the change over to, when they redid it for Finding Nemo. But it was kind of fun. And we also got to meet Kirk Douglas because he was there filming a ad for in front of the China Pavilion, which was just about to open for American Express. And they filmed it, I guess, really early in the morning. It was like a nighttime thing, but they did it very early in the morning. And they made arrangements for him to come over and see the exhibit that we had just, we were just installing and just completing. And we got to meet him that morning there. And it was really interesting to see. I don't know if I've talked about this before on this chat, but it was so interesting to see him was that he walked in and he was pretty old at that time. And he looked like, he wasn't long for this world, but he ended up staying around for quite a bit longer than that, of course. But he really was kind of like spaced out, almost seemed like, and was just not all there. And you just figured, well, he's pretty old. But then less than about 4 days later, they ran the ad for the first time on television. It was amazing how quickly they produced it and got it on the television. And I saw it when it came on, and it was just like he was, all young and vibrant and moving around real fast. So it's like they can really turn it on when they need to act, and then they go back to being whatever they really are, I guess. But it was kind of interesting because it was a kind of a night and day kind of presentation as far as what he did for the ad and what we saw when he came in and visited the exhibit there on 20,000 Leagues.
Maybe he was AI.
Yeah.
Brian put a quote in here. Becky Klein stated, "We're all about Walt Disney, who was a creative inventor. the idea of coming here where they're honoring Ben Franklin, who was also a very creative inventor, seemed the right fit. So that's how explaining being there in Philadelphia.
It all merged into one lucky thing that it was open and available for them. I still think they just needed something on the West Coast. And it just happened to really fit well with Philly and the space. So, I mean, it was great for us because it was one event we can go to for those of us in the Northeast, because everything's usually concentrated in California or Florida or wherever. So it's nice to have something near us.
No, it looks like a great show. Do you know how well was it attended over the running of it?
Off the top of my head, I don't know, but the media preview had a whole bunch of people. The first day, I remember it being crowded on the first day.
Mm-hmm.
But I only went the first day, and I wasn't able to get back to it.
It looks like a lot of fun. What was your overall most unique or favorite, archive item that you saw?
Oh, it was the horse.
Mary Poppins?
Yeah, it was a Mary Poppins horse. And I was like, ah, Mary Poppins horse. I mean, they were all great. It was interesting seeing the guitar and the whistle for Steamboat Willie and the chimes, because those are all iconic, right? You never even think of how they make, I don't, how they make the sounds, but it was just chimes. And it's like, what do you mean it's just chimes? Tinkerbell is magic and it's chimes. Yeah, I don't know. It got in my head.
To me, it's fascinating that they save stuff like the Steamboat Willie whistle over the years. You think how easy that would have been to throw in a draw and have nobody know what it was or what, or the chimes from Tinkerbell. I mean,
Or
it's just,
somebody saved them, right? They
yeah,
like what was it? The globe was just like from Mary Poppins was sort of thrown away and the janitor had it and someone saved it or it knew
yeah.
what it was and
That
brought
was
it to
sitting
the
on top of
archive.
a file cabinet in the basement of the animation building that the janitor just used as an office, and it was there for years. And
Yeah.
then when Dave got the job to set up the archives, the guy mentioned it to him, and you can imagine Dave's jaw dropping. But there was just stuff scattered all around. It was yeah, I know Jimmy McDonald kept a lot of his sound effects stuff because he figured he might want to reuse it in later years. So when I was talking to him, he reached into a drawer and pulled out the thing, which was the sound of the train. I think I can, and he just had boxes of stuff and he knew where it all was. But, it's amazing. Like the Lefograms thing, somebody hung out of that for 100 years. Wow.
Yes. Yes, I put that on my list. When we turned that corner and saw it, it was like, oh my God, they still have it. Or maybe his mother saved it. Who knows? But we have it, and that's all that counts. Or the archives has it.
But then, things you take for granted. The devil from Mr. Toad, he's been living on top of a file cabinet in the archives, work area. I mean, I've seen him in there for the last 20 years, and keep thinking about. I wonder how fast I can run out the door at times. But it's just the people working there. You say something like, "Oh my God, you got that? Oh yeah, it's here." So it's really nice that that stuff's out in person, and it'd be
Yeah, dust it off and throw it on exhibit. People would
yeah,
be very happy to see it.
it'd
Now,
be
from what I
interesting.
understand, they did tweak the exhibit for Chicago. I guess adding and taking away things to make it slightly different. And I assume they're going to do the same thing in Kansas City.
Yeah,
So it may not be the exact same thing.
I'm sure they tweak things around, and as you said, a lot of the stuff is real. A lot of it's replicas because you can't put some of that stuff under light, and, worry about damaging some of those things. But it's obviously the 3D stuff is, the paper stuff is one thing, but the other stuff, the 3D stuff, it's amazing.
From what I understand, the paper and the sheet music and a lot of that was reproductions, but it was beautiful reproductions. If you didn't read it on the placard, you would never know it's a reproduction. Because my first thought was, oh my God, I hope they have a whole bunch of security in here. You know, people touching it, people trying to take it, you know, people are people. But then I saw that it was reproductions. The artifacts look like they're real. I mean, I guess they could be reproductions, but none of them said reproductions. Just the papers.
In the hallway of the animation building in Burbank was lined on the first floor with all sorts of artwork and cells and background stuff from all sorts of movies. As you walk down the hall, you know, there's stuff from Snow White, Peter Pan, Cinderella, Lady and the Tramp. And unfortunately, somebody came in at night and started stealing it. So all of a sudden, they had to replace everything with reproductions. You know, it was somebody who always ruins something good. You know, one thing they didn't have there in the exhibit was the Tyrannosaurus from the World's Fair, the battle, you know, that's now gone to Primeval World at Disneyland. But the one that's there now is a recreation because the original one wore out. And Becky had called me up asking if I could find somebody who would take it off their hand. And I was just thinking about that. Boy, I could have had a really neat Disney artifact here in my front yard, but probably the neighbors wouldn't have liked it. But they have so much stuff. They have warehouses of it. It's great to see it out there and people are able to enjoy it.
Oh yeah, we loved it.
Yeah, a couple other questions or comments you might want to read through down in the chat about the whistle was used for Mickey and Minnie's Railroad. And then Brian said the whistle was found before they started recording the Runaway Railroad and they used it on the ride. So nice to have a piece of Steamboat Willie still, you know, living and working today in the new attraction in the park.
I mean, that makes sense.
And Tom Brooks mentioned the wall of album artwork and music provided by a guy named Bill Morgan. Bill's a huge Disney record music collector. So I know they reached out to a lot of people to try to get input and items and suggestions on stuff. So questions, thoughts that other people like to, you know, what was anybody else's favorite thing they saw there?
Oh, you have to unmute yourselves.
Yeah, Brian.
My
Go ahead.
no, I was going to say
Favorite.
that Pixar computer was really cool to see.
Which one?
The Pixar computer.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that was pretty creative. It's I like how it. I didn't know that the computer was modeled after the logo when Pixar first started before they used the lamp. That was the front of the computer was the Pixar logo. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh, okay, that's pretty cool. So
Yeah, it's interesting they saved some of that stuff because they've gone back and tried to redo some of the stuff with the early, you know, computer animation and realized they don't have computers that can run any of that stuff anymore. So they've massive amounts of data tapes and everything, but they say, oh, let's recreate this 30 seconds in 3D. It's just like with NASA. You got all the stuff, but you don't have the computers to run it anymore.
yeah.
And Tom, you were going to say something?
I was just gonna say my favorite's the Nautilus submarine. I want one. The design on that is just so cool.
It is, and it's all handmade and crafted. I think it's all out of brass. It's really a amazing thing to be able to see in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can get
like
really
that.
close to it too.
What's that?
You can actually get quite close to it. I mean, it's encased in glass, but it was right there. You can actually see all the fine detail.
Do you all envision the movie and when the Nautilus first shows up, remember with the eyes of a sea monster, coming towards the ship, and it was just so cool.
Yeah, it's amazing what they can do with all practical effects. I mean, that to me is a lot more exciting to see the model of the Nautilus than what you can do with CGI today. I mean, the practical effects to me are amazing. CGI is just, and I worked in CGI. Maybe that's why it's blasé to me, but the miniature stuff is just fascinating.
Well, yeah, because you have something physical you can see and say, I saw that in that movie. You think of the early Star Wars and some of those other shows that were done when it was all models and cameras flying over them physically to make the special effects. And even though they can do it now and they're pretty amazing what you can do, there is no physical thing that you can look at someday and say that was the one they used in the movie. It was just like it's in a computer. So yeah, I guess you could look at a computer screen and say that screen is the screen the guy animated it on. But it's not quite the same.
The real deal stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Also, if you're filming something like a miniature submarine and you got to deal with the fact that you can't miniaturize water, you've got to figure out ways to deal with that. That's a lot of work as opposed to on the computer. You can do anything if you have enough time. I mean, it's good stuff, but I worked on the Adventures of Lois and Clark, and we did the first animation, and we did animation on Free Willy too, and it was fun to do, but it just to me of flying, I go back to the days of you know After My Professor, where they're flying Fred McMurray and everything around a church steeple in a little miniature Model T. To me, that was really interesting because they got to build a little miniature, Ned Brainerd and his girlfriend to be up there in the car going around the thing. It was the illusions were much more realistic to me back then.
The last time the Reagan Museum had a Disney exhibit a long time ago, they sold copies of Walt Disney's badge, #1, and I bought one of those. I don't know what happened. I mean, I'm the only one that I know of that has one, but I'm sure other people bought them. It was pretty neat.
Well, that's neat. Yeah, so many things. Carol was just online yesterday, with more Disney stuff that's available for sale online, and we don't need it. The house is bulging, but I'll take one of those and one of those, and that looks like fun. That would be good. So there's always all this stuff you get, and then you have to try to figure where did I put it?
Well, that's the thing
usually
about
what I think.
pins and jewelry. You got to always find space.
No, I mean, it looks like it was a fascinating exhibit, and I really appreciate your putting it together. A lot of people are saying, "Oh, let's go to Philadelphia and see it." And my feeling is I've seen a lot of it already, and but Philadelphia is a little out of the way. Maybe Kansas City's a little closer. Go to Kansas City, we can go to Marceline.
Oh, you got that. Absolutely.
Well,
It's
after
not that far away.
Roger gave us the great talk in Marceline. I've wanted to go there since then.
They'll be happy to have you.
Yeah. Well, thanks. I appreciate it. It was great fun to see, and I know you put a lot of time and effort into putting it all together. And just like Disney had to distill all the millions of artifacts down to an exhibit, how many photos did you have to distill down for us today?
Oh, for those of you that are my Facebook friends, you know how much I had hundreds and hundreds. So I went through each one just to find, what's good enough for the presentation that wasn't gonna, overwhelm. And then I decided just the artifacts, because I have multiple videos of the interactive sides and stuff like that. But I figured you want to see the artifacts more than anything else. So that's what I narrowed down on.
I think
But it was a long time. Probably a good 3 weeks, I guess.
Bill, real quick, just Michelle, I just remember being very, very grateful to you for having those pictures of the record wall and going through, each one, like with a microscope, trying to make sure, I had them all, and then finding out that Becky cheated and she turned some CD covers into like 12-inch record covers and stuff. So there were several items that don't exist that show up on that record wall. But like I said, I spent days, like searching the internet, trying to find all of them and, see if I had them. And then, I think I pretty much had all but Videopolis. And then I was able to get that. And but like Tarzan and stuff, she blew up the CD cover, made it look like a 12-inch album, and some others, and it was it was quite the journey. But yeah, I really loved it, and very grateful to you. So thank you.
Yeah, I
I
do have
imagine,
close-ups of that wall. I have multiple photos of close-ups, but I didn't know how much to throw at you.
Yep.
So I took the wide shot.
Yeah.
I imagine that it put the compulsive collectors like Tom into a near panic that, oh my God, I don't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Tom, by the way, when I got during the talk, you might have heard the dogs barking as the mail got delivered. I just got a World's Fair record album delivered that wasn't in your World's Fair record talk. So when I open it up, I'll send you a copy of it.
Okay, cool.
So it was Caroline songs from the
No,
Christmas music from the Coca-Cola Pavilion.
yeah, no, I had that.
You had that one? Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. I had the Coca-Cola main one, and then I had the Christmas one next to it.
oh, okay. I
Yep.
didn't remember,
No,
but
no, when
somebody had it
you
online
posted on
for
Facebook, and I saw it and was like, oh yeah, I had that.
Yep. Good price. Buy it now. Jumped on it. So I got to get it
Well,
before Tom does.
right now, our local big record seller, it's called Randy's Records, is having a $2 sale. So it started yesterday, and Carrie and I went through about half of them yesterday afternoon, and I would, and now I'm, doing this instead of going back and going through the other half of the collection. But it's really fun. I've got a couple Disney records and some box sets of like Jack Benny and the Bickersons and old time radio comedy albums and stuff that were never opened. They're brand new.
Amazing how
And
stuff like that shows up untouched, like the doll that Michelle showed us, the Mickey doll in such great shape. You wonder, how do people get this stuff and then keep it all these years?
It was
that one was
in
hand sewn,
amazing
wasn't it?
shape. I'm sorry?
Wasn't that handmade from the pattern?
I believe so, yes. The
Yeah.
McCall's pattern.
Yeah.
But you're talking about a doll that's almost 100 years old and it looks like it was made last week. So they must have either kept it in a dark room in a box or forgot about it and it was found in a corner somewhere.
Great stuff.
If you think record collectors are bad, doll collectors are probably even worse about, keeping everything perfect.
I can
Amazing.
imagine that.
The small world doll you mentioned was a little creepy up close and personal.
Yeah, I mean, all the things up close were kind of, but it was still beautiful. It was just a little creepy. Because you can go, I mean, you can get quite close to it. It's not far. I mean, there's just a plane of glass between you and the doll. So it gave me like Chucky vibes. I don't know.
I was walking through the attraction at Disneyland one day when all the dolls, everything was turned off, and I was looking at the costumes are really well made, but all of a sudden all the dolls came to life without the music, and they were all just making all the motions and everything, and then the song came on, and by the time I got out of the building, it was branded in my head. But you can imagine being in there with all those dolls, and you're looking at them, and all of a sudden they all start coming to life. It was like it was like a nightmare. Where's the exit?
There you go.
Run for your lives.
Yeah, exactly. You just keep hoping Karen Black's not around.
Oh, God.
Remember that one. Well, thanks much. I think next week I got some more movies coming up and looking forward to getting into some additional items. Brock, I started working on your photos that you gave me at lunch and had fun going through, sorting them out and scanning away. So I will have those for you next time I see you.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yep. So it looks like somebody went there a bunch in 68, I think it was. 66.
Yeah, I think so. Somewhere in that time frame. It was like, say, it was my daughter-in-law's parents who took the pictures, and she didn't know, what the history was behind them. She just found it when she was going through all their stuff. And then, like I say, there was those set that had been bought from Disneyland, which you already have a copy of, but they were like all red. and then you showed the ones that you had restored to me. You gave, sent a couple for me to see. It was like, wow, it's amazing they come back from that. I'm still amazed at how that whole process works.
It is amazing. When they first came up with the technology, the company that came up with a way to turn the red pictures back and everything, the name of the company was Applied Science Fiction. And then Kodak ended up buying it. But I thought that was a great name because it seemed like science fiction to me that you could take a very red picture and restore it to life. The very first one that came in the box was actually from May of '64. It's a really nice picture of the dolls from Small World. So I don't know where you picked that one up along the way, but somebody slipped a Great World's Fair shot in there.
Okay.
So, but I will keep working on them, and they are sitting right here, and the box may look familiar.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's the Panaview ones. I'm not going to restore those a second time, so I'll just
No
give
problem.
back what I got.
Yeah.
Well, thanks much, and I'm glad Michele, some of your friends joined us, and you're welcome. By the way, Grant, I've been waiting for the train to move past your head the entire time. As a train collector, I got a big kick out of seeing that up there. But you're more than welcome to join us in any future Saturday. And if you're interested, just have Michele forward me your email address, and I can add you to the invite list. Or every week, I put up the list of what we're going to be doing next, and the link on the my World's Fair site for the Zoom link. And you can also go back to all the other things, so you can hear Roger's talk about Marceline that we've been talking about, or Carolyn's talk, or all sorts of others. So
Beth had a train talk a while ago.
yes,
I remember.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah, Beth did the talk about the general, the locomotive, and her son has done several talks. And Beth also took us back to the what you call it, Florida, St. Augustine, and some other places. So like I said, I love it when other people do talks because I'm seeing things that are new to me, and I have a great time with it. But we have to find a reason to come back down and see the general in person again, Beth.
Yeah, please come to Kennesaw. I
I
was just there a week or so ago and ran past it. We had gone to a presentation, but then Andrew had some other event he was trying to go to. So we literally like ran past the general on the way to get to our next place. But yeah, it's a great museum.
Well, I know my next trip that Carol and I are taking is to New York for July 14th. Yeah, the chat at the Queen's Theater. So looking forward to that. And then we're going to go upstate New York for a week and look at waterfalls and everything that's not stucco and not LA.
Most of the friends, thank you friends, my friends who showed up for this, most of them are also going to be at your talk in July at the Queen's Theater as well.
Oh, great.
We're having a semi-big get-together of people flying in for it.
Oh, look forward to it.
We're going to be the full front row.
Yes, sorry.
But if you sit in the front row, you can't make faces. You have to be nice, It is interesting when you give a talk at things, you're trying to get audience reaction and try to engage with people. But I had a talk, I did one where somebody in the very front row fell asleep very quickly, and it was like, hi, I'm really here and glad to talk. And they were gone. And I said, okay, I got to remember this person was like 98 years old. They had been to the Chicago World's Fair and everything. But as soon as I said, thank you for coming, she fell asleep. And for the entire talk, I'm trying not to look at the first row, third seat from the left. It was terrible. You just get familiar with it. Tom says he has a large collection of trains, mostly LGB. I have a huge set of Lionel 027s in the garage that I will probably never ever set up again because I just don't have the space for it. But it was my childhood set that I had shipped out here from New York, and it's been sitting in the garage for 50 years now. So someday I'll look at it again.
You just need to buy a separate building.
What's that?
You just need to buy a building to put all your collections in.
Oh God, it's really interesting. I keep thinking if I won the lottery, what you could do. And one thing is I could buy out my next door neighbors who I don't like, and I could just put my train set in their house. So But yeah, no, that poor Carol knows from our trips. I've never seen a train I didn't like. So we can be in the middle of nowhere and it'll say, train 82 miles up this one lane road with rocks in the middle of it. Up we go. We're on our way to go look at the train. So we've ridden quite a few steam trains and things around the world. So when I was looking at where to go upstate New York, I said, "Oh, there's a train." So we'll see where we end up.
I don't even think I knew about that. I don't think of train museums in this area, but I guess there are plenty.
Yeah, there's a couple upstate New York, and then there's a couple. One of the things we did a couple years ago that was fun was rail bikes, and they basically take old railroad lines and put bikes, not really a bike bicycle, but like a go-kart type thing that you pedal and off you go. And we had a really great time. We were up in the Adirondack Mountains, and my college roommate was on the bike in front of us, and we were going along, and all of a sudden a deer just jumps between the two cars as we're going by, and yeah, it was really nice. And then we did one here in LA. If you're in the LA area, if you go out to what's the name of the town? It's a road. Oh, it's right out here in the next valley. They have ones that are really nice because they're electric bikes. So we pedaled. Carol and I pedaled like mad. But if you get tired, you could just turn in the electric motor and go coasting along and through all the old orange groves and that sort of stuff. So great fun. But there's another bike route through the Catskill Mountains. We've done but then even in the Adirondack Mountains, they said, "Oh, well, you did the north route. Now we've got one that goes south." We didn't do it the last time. We stopped in, but we didn't have time. But we'll see where we end up. Carol's a great sport. She indulges me in all this silliness. So
nice. I got to get up to upstate. I always go downstate. I very rarely go upstate.
Oh, it upstate. And how many other people here have been upstate New York?
I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
Okay. Jim
Yep.
Brown, you don't have your hand up. You haven't gone upstate?
Silence.
He's trying to unmute. For people that have not been to upstate New York, it is as different as night and day. When you get 50 miles north of Manhattan, you're in a totally different world.
Yeah.
But you get up to the Adirondack Mountains, so like the lakes and everything is just absolutely gorgeous. And
The Finger Lakes. Yeah.
yeah, if it wasn't for the winters, we'd be living there. The Thousand Islands, Lake George, those places are just phenomenal. So I imagine when we come back, I'll have a day of one of the Saturday talks will be Bill, his drone and waterfalls of New York.
I worked in Albany for about 5 years.
Did you?
Yep.
Where'd you live?
No, I lived in Salt Lake City.
Oh, you commuted. Oh, wow.
Yep, I commuted and it was awful. It was easy to get there, but it would always take me about 2 days to get home
Yeah.
because
Well,
of the available airlines. And I'm sorry, Beth, but I get stuck in Atlanta.
Everyone does.
there was a saying back when we worked for Disney that because again, most of the flights would be LA to Atlanta, Atlanta to Orlando. And there was a saying back at that time, it doesn't matter if you're on your way to, when you die, if you're on your way to heaven or hell, you're going to have to change in Atlanta.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I worked in Albany, and that's where I was when Disney moved me out here. So I was again, nice place to visit. Don't like the winters. So
My daughter and son-in-law that live in Napa now, they used to live in near Geneva. So I
okay.
helped them move back there and stayed there a long time. And then I was going to mention too, I know there's a really great railroad museum I went to outside of Philadelphia, and I thought it was one of the nicest in the United States, but I was just perusing a list and I didn't even see if it was on the list. It says the biggest one is in Illinois, Chicago, and then the next biggest is in California. And then I think it said Texas and Kentucky.
There is a huge one in Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania
Yeah,
has the state one, and then there's
yeah.
the Strasburg Railroad. That's a great one to ride too.
Well, and plus the beautiful train station downtown is just, you know, is that not one of the best in the United States? I mean,
I haven't seen. Well, actually, I did see it. Neil and I were there one day. It was nice. In Pennsylvania, you can actually stay in a hotel, which is all a motel. It's all railroad cabooses, and the kids got a real kick out of staying inside a railroad caboose. I was disappointed because the one I wanted to stay in was painted like a Lionel caboose, but we ended up in some generic railroad. But it's kind of neat to stay in a hotel with 12, 20 cabooses all on train tracks down the line. So
is is Lionel the one? I mean, I have some Lionel trains too, but I was that the one that Neil Young bought?
don't know.
He remember he has a couple kids that are disabled, and so he was working with them to create controls and stuff to help run the trains, so so they could do it, and then he ended up buying half the company.
Wow.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
No, don't know that one. Well, thanks, folks, for joining. And Michele, thank you so much for joining it. It was
Thank you.
great to see it all. And like I said, I had seen pictures of it, but not going through it from A to Z or from gallery 1 to 10. So appreciate your doing that for us.
Sure. Thank you for having me. And for those of you that are Facebook friends, you can always look at the album and see the 1,000 other photos that I took that I'm sure will bore you.
Great. Well, hope to see some of you again next week and have a great time during the week. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
everyone.
All right. Bye.